Lately I've been thinking about what is required to live a more fruitful life, and, where do I get this sort of advice from? And really thinking about it, sometimes you may go to a much older person who has lived a very long, life and is experienced, and they may give you some insights. Or you may go to someone who's younger, who's more youthful and has a different perspective on life. And I remember watching a video by Les Brown one time, and he said he read a book on the lessons learned from those who are dying. And I know that sounds quite bleak and down and dreary, but there are things we can take on board from those who have not long to live or a limited lifespan in order for us to enrich our lives for those who still have time to really live the lives that we want to live. And so I'm going to be referring to my phone, and I'm going to be talking about 5 top lessons that those who have a limited life basically said they wish they had if they had more time. Now, I'm going to reference a book that I'm going to start reading soon. So it's called Regrets of the Dying, and this is by Georgina Skull. I've recently got it. I haven't read it yet, but I've read some stuff around, some of this piece of work. And so I'm going to summarize 5 different points that she talks about. So just to add to this, the caveat with this information that you're receiving has been from people who had, again, a limited lifespan, and they range between 28 years old and 94. So it's a huge span. So we've got various different spectrums. And so that just gives you a perspective of the type of people who are talking. And they had various different, conditions that led them to this devastating situation. Now, one thing is guaranteed in life. We won't be here forever, Whether you believe in the soul, the spirit, or whatever it may be, our flesh will not be here forever. And so there are some things we can take away from this. So the first one, the one that was most said, was that individuals wished they had lived a life that they wanted to live and not lived a life that was lived based on the expectations of other people. And so really this means living authentically. Really this means living true to oneself and not living based on the conditions of other people. There is this thing in psychology known as introjection. And introjection is where we've abound all these different beliefs, values, expectations, habits from significant people, teachers, parents, siblings, friends. And we've just taken these things on board. And there's this thing called Gestalt therapy, which basically talks about how we can move into a state of what they call organismic living, where you do things that are true to self, okay? And you're not doing shadistic living, where it's you're doing things based on shoulds, woulds, and coulds, okay? And so when you train your psychological muscle, when you train that point where you're moving from subjectivity, just taking things in, and moving into a space of objectivity, you start to develop maturity. You start to develop a sense of, actually, I want to do things based on my own accord. And this is why I've always said living by your values is so key. For those of you who don't know what your values are the things that you deem as most important to you. You have different types of values. You have your means values, okay? You have your ends values, and you have core values. And I'm talking about those core ones that stick with you for a very, very long time. What are those things that drive you as a person? What forces you to be purposeful? What pushes you to obtain mastery? What enables you to have that sense of autonomy and sense of freedom? We shouldn't be bound by different people pushing us to do different things. Of course, there are social cues. There are, emotionally intelligent things we can do. Of course, we can't always be truly authentic, but we can live a life of authenticity. And so it's important for us to understand that if we live a life that we want to live more fully, more truly, we are less likely going to be bound by these regrets of not living a life that we truly wanted to live. Some people are dealt the cards that they were given in life. I say some, but everyone is. And sometimes the cards that some people are dealt, make it hard for them to even have the opportunities that you looking at this screen are having right now. And so really be grateful for your life, but also don't be afraid to aggressively defend your authentic life. Because as far as we know, there's only one version of this one. Okay, I'm not talking about any other multiple versions. I'm talking about this version we have right now. We live in one eternal moment. And so with that moment, harness it in a way that is authentic to self. The second regret that was mentioned quite a bit was, I wish I didn't work as hard. Now, this pretty much came from all of the male patients who were at the end of their life. And it did come from some female patients. However, these were more older individuals. And so there is this whole idea that if you don't work hard now, you're not going to get any sense of reward. Now, this is me not saying don't work hard. I'm definitely one who works hard, okay? To the point where it may not even be healthy, to the point where you may suffer burnout. However, there are opportunities to create space, moments, experiences with loved ones, with family, with friends. Don't push out the chance to spend time, valuable time with people because of potential monetary gain. I know economically, things are dire at the moment, things are difficult, but experiences make us human. What we experience and what we internalize emotionally and spiritually is what connects us as human beings. And so connection with others is key. Work hard, but also play hard too. Have that right level of balance for you. So I would say, be clear about what you like. Be clear about what you don't like. Be abundantly clear about what you have to compromise. But remember, those compromises are things you're going to have to live with or die with and bury in the grave with yourself. And so with that in mind, if there is one thing that you're trying to achieve, go in for it. But at the same time, also think about the times and opportunities you can spend with other people so that you can actually experience life for what it is. The third thing was, people said they wish they had the courage to express their feelings. Now, this is an interesting one because people may feel a certain way about many different types of people. Now, this is me not saying, you should go out and tell every single Tom, Dick and Harry that you love them, whatever it may be. But sometimes it's important to vocalize and express yourselves. Sometimes we keep quiet because we want to keep the peace, but for whose benefit? Sometimes that means you're drinking your own poison. I've always said expression is a great healer and a great remedy. It's not about being aggressive. It's not necessarily about being rowdy, but you have a right to express how you feel because those feelings transcend into decisions and habits and ways and approaches of being. And so if you're suppressing something, you're not efficient in your actions. So this is all to say, if there is something on your mind, if there is something on your heart that you need to let someone know, let them know. Because tomorrow is never promised. And whether you get the response you want or not, at least you've expressed how you felt. Holding on to something that prevents you from getting that release is very stressful. It's very frustrating. The thing that we need to manage in this life, I believe at least, is a level of acceptance, is a level of gratitude, is a level of managing our emotions in order for us to make decisions that are aligned to our core highest values. And so with that in mind, it's important for you to express how you feel. Don't hold things back. I'm not saying aggressive, but find ways to communicate how you feel, especially to your loved ones, because you don't know how long they have left. So feel free to express yourself to different individuals. The fourth thing is, they wish they had stayed in touch with their friends. Look, we all have busy lifestyles. We've all got something to do, And I was talking to my cousin about this the other day, and she was saying how, this is a very British thing where, if you ask someone if they want to go out or go to this place or whatever it may be, you have to schedule it. You have to put it in the diary or whatever it may be. But other cultures, it may be, allow sort of like that free-flowing energy to say, yeah, I'm free, let's go on that day. We've kind of lost that element at times, at least in the West. We have to schedule things, which is fine. But this is all to say, this chips away at a young, fresh, buoyant, active, dynamic relationship that you may have with your friendships. There are friends that I have let slip away on purpose, and there are friends that I haven't let slip away on purpose. And the former, should I say, has been people who haven't necessarily been good for me. Protect your friends aggressively, protect yourself aggressively. The latter is due to the fact that I've been busy, so to speak, occupied doing things and not making time for those individuals. And whether you want to agree with this or not, we are seeking connection. We are seeking people who are similar to us. We are seeking people who make us feel a certain way. We are seeking people who are extensions of ourselves, as Aristotle would once say. And so we can't take that for granted. There are times where people don't always act accordingly. And of course, this is where you go back on the previous point where you express yourself. However, you have to be able to manage people effectively, not to the point where you just cancel them and forget them. If they're your friend, treat them as your friend and be good at actively managing that relationship. Whether this is checking up to see how they're doing, whether this is going out with them, whether this is helping them with certain things, you know what your superpower is in that relationship. So manage that friendship well. Sometimes there are friendships that are not real friendships. I've done a video on this. Define what type of friendship it is and stick aggressively to those friends. Create that clan, create that community, create that mastermind. I've always said the worst thing is, getting to 80, 90 and you're surrounded by no one. You may have your family around you, but what about your friends? It's a different quality. And so take them seriously, okay? If it feels like it's been a long time, don't be afraid to break the ice. Because I'm telling you, at some point you will regret it. There is always at least one person where you're like, I wish it never ended that way. If you have the chance to, make amends. And if you can't, just know that potentially that may be something that you regret when you pass in this earth. So don't forget your friends. Make an effort. And the last thing is that people have said, I wish I had let myself be happier. That sounds crazy because it's like, how can you create happiness? How can you make yourself happy? It's almost like when you're in a relationship or a partnership and they say, I rely on my partner to make me happy, or they make me happy. They can influence that. But ultimately, you could argue that's something down to you. And sometimes we don't see happiness as a decision. It's a difficult one to play with. And sometimes I battle with this idea. You can check out my book, by the way, Happiness, the Fundamental Keys to Experiencing It Daily. Okay, so it really talks about what the world says happiness is and how I break that down into what I believe happiness is. But coming back to the point, there are people who can influence your happiness, but there are things that you can do. Okay, sometimes we can get stuck in habits and routines that prepare us into a state of unhappiness, into a state of fear, false evidence appearing real, as Zig Ziglar would once say. And so we have to create mechanisms in order to induce a sense of happiness, to ignite those endorphins and oxytocins and all these different things, serotonins that help you relax, and all these different things that contribute to a state of happiness. And so these routines may include exercise. This may include hobbies or activities. These may include passions that you want to do rather than chasing money. These may include people that you surround yourself with. This may be removing yourself from environments or partners or partnerships or family members. You define the happiness. And one thing that I've realized is that even as humans, we have special qualities and stuff. We are a product of our environment, whether we like it or not, our micro and macro environments. And so if you can create an environment as well as routines that induce habits that create a sense of happy behaviors, so to speak, you're more likely going to feel happiness, okay? Because really it's the moment that counts. I've always said that, part of what I do with Mastery Group, which is my company, and my coaching and everything else is create happier moments. Moments. It's those moments, being present, okay? That level of self-awareness and self-management that enables you to understand that I can create my happiness. Don't let other people dictate that for you. And if people are, find ways to strategically, but aggressively find ways to create more happier moments. We can't be happy all the time. The hedonic treadmill talks about this. There is this state of going up and down, but there is a baseline. And if we can be at the baseline and slightly up, then that's satisfaction right there. Okay. And so remember, you have more locus of control than you think. So hopefully these 5 things have given you some perspective. Okay. These 5 things have really helped me as well. And I'm sure I'm going to get more insights from this book. Now, I'd love to know, What are some things you would advise people in order to live a more fulfilled life? Anyway, if you like videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.